So it's not like there's a really protective, safe person that you feel reassured will be able to take over that role.
There are some,
because she's completely not present there, is she? She's very subservient and very withdrawn and not able to necessarily step into that.
protect the children. There are some positive relationships with the mother's family. I know Anna's not allowed to pursue them, but there are people there that potentially could be a support.
Yes,
On the
mother's side that she's been isolated from, hasn't she?
I'll put isolation from family too. Isolation.
And it does say about in like the
From extended family members, because they could be such a brilliant resource, but they have been left out. From extended family members.
in the guidance in the intervention section, it says that any intervention for children living with domestic abuse, and one of those is to empower the non-abusing parent to protect the children. So it's then about looking at how you get mum involved, because up to this point she may not have even acknowledged it herself and hasn't wanted any support, doesn't know that there is any support. So how can mum actually be thinking how to stop this situation if she doesn't know that there's anyone that can help?
But now Anna's spoken, if Anna gets some good support as a result of this, that's going to probably have a knock-on effect on mum. This could be handled very well indeed. We could do quite a lot of intervention, as long as we're all singing from the song sheet, different ones of us trying to help here. Because if we don't get it right, we could really mess up and make Anna's life a whole lot worse. And she's going to feel that things are already a bit out of control, get some services that aren't well coordinated and got bits and pieces wrong, it could be even worse and she feels even more control. But we could do some good stuff. We could help mum. Mum, with one chat to one of you guys, might be one of these women that thinks, why on earth? I can do so. I don't have to put up with this. She's already aware from what the dialogue tells us that life's much better when the husband's off working in Belgium. We've got stuff to build on. We'll come back to that later.
Okay.
What if we stop this now, and I'll come back to just ask a little bit about the case study later, because we can build that in. We'll have time for that, then we won't keep you waiting here too long.
Okay, right. We've got our guest speakers. We've got Anne Sherman and we've got Jenny Robson. I'm going to let them introduce their roles because you're just going from one to another, aren't you?
Yes.
So I will. Are you going first, Anne?
I think I might kick off, but and then Jen can step in.
Fine. Do you want to know who? I mean, basically, what we've got in the room is we're all independent domestic violence advisors. And we've got Sonia is the marriage coordinator.
Sonia.
Kate's administrator. Emma and Kay are administrators. Chris is our court-based IDVA. Kate is our training and development officer. And Becky's our court-based IDVA. And Jess works at probation, and she's
My main concern is that camera working?
sorry.
You're filming us?
Oh, we're filming the day for our manager because she can't be here.
It is for our colleagues who are manning the offices, that's
I
why.
don't do cameras, I'm not.
Pretend it's not there.
We're only going to upload it once to YouTube.
And could you just do something like photographic data? Thank you.
You'll be able to see it later on YouTube, it'll be fine.
Okay, as Mel said, my name's Anne Sherman. I'm one of the two team managers in the new Children's Access Point, which is actually based here in County Hall North upstairs on the 4th floor. Some of you may have heard my name before that because I was a referral and assessment team manager based in Chichester, which is where I know Jenny from, because Jenny was a social worker in that team.
Until
yesterday, and now you're...
And now I'm up here. I'm a senior practitioner, having just moved from referral and assessment. But it's referral and assessment that I'll talk to you about today.
So I'm going to talk to you about the CAP, and what I don't want to do is making it a talk at you, because I think that is really boring, particularly in the afternoon slot after lunch, and everybody's starting to feel a bit jaded. But I'll sort of give you some information really about the CAP, how it was set up, what we do, but ask me questions as I go along really, and I'll sort of answer them as best as I can. And then Jen, if she's got anything to add, we'll do that. Have you all heard of the Children's Access Point?
Yeah.
Okay. So you probably know that it was up and running, fully go live from the 25th of July this year. So we take in referrals, all new referrals on children who are not currently open to a social worker. And that is across the county. prior to that, you probably remember that there was a duty desk or access point in Chichester, one in Worthing and one in the north. And they were designed really to try and reduce to some extent what is the postcode lottery across West Sussex. So if you lived in Crawley, you got one service. If you lived in Bognor, you'd get another. So it was the idea, I think probably a couple of years ago, that we actually brought together into 3 hubs. We had the Ofsted announced inspection last year, and you've probably all read that. And one of the responses that we have done as a county council was to again look at our front door and actually bring it together into a children's access point, a centralised point. The rationale behind that was that again there was still the postcode lottery about service delivery and actually responses to referrals, whether they were IA, whether they were seen in section 47. Do you understand my terminology? Yeah. And it was really to look at how we could offer a better service to professionals and to children and families that we work with in terms of that front door response. So there was some fairly quick planning, a lot of time given to it in terms of the setting up. And I have to say, you may not know, we've recently had an unannounced visit to the county. Do you know about that?
Yeah.
And actually they were really impressed with the CAP and some of the changes that we made and really thought it was the way forward for the county council. The telephones we've got, if I just tell you staff, we've got Leslie Woodrow and myself. Some of you from the north will know Leslie from Referral Assessment in Crawley. We've got 4 senior practitioners, one of whom is Jenny, and we've got Paul Engerman, who's moved across from a long-term team, Vicky Guest from Crawley, and Pam Moore from Coastal. And we've got 6 social work equivalents and about 10 admin. The admin, people usually say, God, aren't you lucky? But it's the amount of volume of work and processing. It's like a production line up there, really. One of the basic principles is that all telephone calls into the CAP will be answered by an experienced and qualified social worker so that people get appropriate advice and appropriate knowledge and skills in actually taking that call and making sure that we take the relevant details that we require in terms of referral, but we also actually give good advice to the callers. So those of you that would have run, hopefully would have spoken to a qualified social worker. And the main aim of the CAP is really to either redirect, so if you ring in with a query, we could say actually we don't think this is for social care, have you tried this, and redirect people to resolve it, i.e. give advice, which means we don't need to do anything further, or to actually take a referral in. And the referrals that we take are only when it meets the criteria for section 17, so that's children in need, and if it's section 47. If it's anything else, then we're actually looking at redirecting it much more out towards single agency responses and towards using CAF a lot more, because that hasn't really taken off in West Sussex as it could have done.
And can I just say, when you said referrals in are only to those that are not open to any other social worker.
Yeah.
So if we didn't know that, if we were working with a client and they know but they haven't disclosed to us and we've had a concern, what happens then? So we would give you a call.
You would ring us in, the social worker that takes the call would check our framework I. If you heard of framework, it's our current database. And that would hopefully be able to tell us if it was open or not. Have say there's some issues around clean up and how it's managed. But if it wasn't identifiable that it was a social worker, we would actually talk you, take the referral. If we then found out it was open, we would obviously let yourselves know and pass the information to the allocated social worker. We get a lot of calls where people don't know if there is a social worker, and we need to help you as much as possible. The other thing that you might have found if you're ringing in is if you know there's an allocated social worker and you can't get hold of them, and I know it is a bit of a problem that they're not in IFS and you can't get a duty worker. The idea is that they would go back to the contact centre and the contact centre have an escalation process. That we are not message takers if it makes sense for another team. And if their systems aren't working, then that's something that needs to be fed up really. But we will be as helpful as we can to yourselves if you need to ring in for advice. One of the biggest shifts that may be around is when we're talking about a section 17 referral. We will not take one without parental consent. That will be one of the first questions that you'll be asked. Have you got parental consent to make this referral? And that and I'm not suggesting you do it, but I think we have had in the past maybe some other agencies who tell a parent that they're going to refer. That isn't the same as actually consent. It's actually about having a conversation to say, we really think, there needs to be an assessment. It'll be about a social worker coming out to see you, wanting to talk to you about your family, wanting to talk to your children on their own, and are you happy with us making that referral? Because they have a right to know the consequences of you guys ringing in, don't they? That there will be a social care record, and social services will be making agency checks about you and your family, and we want to see your child on their own. And they don't have to agree to a Section 17 referral.
That's interesting.
Yeah. Which I know there's a lot of anxiety around what is Section 17 doesn't make the threshold, but that is something that the worker on the phone will actually talk through with you and give reasons why we don't think it is. Because I think historically social care have taken a lot of work in. Practice has been that, we'll ring a help, you give us a referral, we're not sure, we'll ring you and say, are you going out, what do you make of it, we'll ring the health visitor, when have you last seen these children. We're not allowed to do that anymore. We don't do any pre-work, as it's called, in terms of ringing round. So the decisions we make would be on the call you made to us and that information, and any past history that may be relevant. But we can't pick up the phone to the school and say, is Johnny dirty,
And can
yeah,
I ask
well, that's what but people used to ring round and say to the health visitor, oh, were you going out there? Could you go and have a look and actually let us know if it's that bad? We used to do it, and it wasn't right because parents didn't know about it. So we've stopped that completely. So you're going to say?
Can I ask what the percentage of the calls in are either Section 17 or 47?
Well, I can
what
give you
percentage
some,
that you kind of
I can try and give you
divert?
figures. In terms of the children's access point, if I just sort of give you some ideas of numbers, I can give you last week's, we haven't got this week's yet. I've got the right number. The number of what we call contacts in, so it's not a referral until Leslie and I agree that it needs an assessment. The number of contacts in were 515, and last week was a quiet week. Our busiest week so far was 733.
And that's just people phoning in?
No, that's all contacts in. So it'll be phones, it will be post, and it will be emails and faxes.
With concerns around children?
Yeah.
So were they unique 733 children?
Well, they're unique. They're individuals, counted on individuals.
On
So if you
yeah.
if you referred in a family of 5, there would be 5 contacts. Because well, I say that. If the concern's related to the 5 children, then they'd be put on as 5 contacts in.
Yeah.
Contacts in. What we're trying to get better at doing is not automatically opening up all children in a family. So if you had a particular child with difficulties that may be in relation to ADHD, some problems at school, being aggressive in the home, we would have to consider how does that impact on other siblings, so if you had younger children. But if, say, he or she was 12 and the next sibling was 15, we may say, actually, we don't need to open the 15-year-old because in terms of their age, they're not so vulnerable, but we clearly need to be looking at this one child. So there is more of a professional judgment around that we just don't open every child because they're in the family. So again, you may be working with children in DB situations where your concerns are much more about the younger children who would be at risk maybe of physical harm or emotional harm, but there's an older child that for whatever reason doesn't fall into the remit. I'm just trying to think again, if you've got an older child that is out and about more, is more resilient, then we have to take that into consideration. So that will be on 733 will be children that we've identified that need to have a contact. It's a huge amount of work.
How many on the help desk?
There are 6 social workers taking the calls. But our busiest traffic, I have to say, is through what we call it e-post. All of the police reports. Every time the police go out, they send in a report that comes in now electronically into our wonderful machine upstairs that converts it into an email. So they're our biggest referrer. And Mondays and Tuesdays, as you can imagine, are bank holiday weekends. It's huge. And it usually takes us Monday, Tuesday to sort of feel we've broken the back of the weekend.